I truly believe that if you're focusing on your passions and your purpose, that is going to guide you where you need to be, and doors will open up that you need to have open up, and the income will take care of itself. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Pursuit. It is Friday, December 3rd, keeping the string going. Excited to have you back in this conversation. Hopefully you were able to check out the illustration I teased last week and earlier this week to give you some ideas of what we might be talking about today. Before we get to do that, I want to give a quick shout out to my on-ramp fam. By now, we've announced a big announcement, I guess double announcements there. We've announced a partnership with our friends over at Ritholtz Wealth and Wisdom Tree, helping them create model crypto portfolios for their clients. A big deal. It's the first one like it, and it's been a big thing we've been working on ramp. And I share this in the episode of The Pursuit mainly because this has been a part of my personal pursuit, and that's what I've been using to try to tell this story on this show, is sharing my pursuit, being an open book, and sharing what's going on. It was a big moment, really exciting, and just want to shout out everybody at OnRamp, all of the team, the developers, the engineers, everybody there, marketing, sales, customer success. Everybody has been working hard, stepping outside of their zone of what they're supposed to be doing to make sure that this gets off to a great start, and really excited. So while I don't cross over too often, I did want to give a big shout out because that's part of my personal pursuit, and I am extremely proud of the team. It's a really big day for us. So shout out to all the on-ramp fam, shout out to Ritholtz Wealth, shout out to Wisdom Tree for making this happen, and a big move forward as we disrupt the profession. So part of my pursuit, a big exciting news. Now I'll get into today's topic. So if you looked at the illustration and the title of today's podcast, which I actually haven't finalized yet, it'll be something along the lines of, financial planning for your pursuit. Today we are going to bring some of my financial advisor DNA to the episode. But before we get to the planning side, I do want to talk about this concept of aligning your values and your dollars. And it's something that I've talked about a lot over time, especially over the last few years. I got into what is called life planning indirectly through an advisor friend of mine, Scott Frank, who does an amazing job, is an awesome person, awesome financial advisor. And he turned me on to life planning, which was started by George Kinder, who actually has been on All About Your Benjamins before. And the concept of life planning is not so much focusing around the numbers and making that the center of your plan and building around that. It's figuring out what you care about most and then determining what your finances need to look like to make that happen. So the illustration that I did had the pursuit in the Harmless wealth circle surrounding values and personal and family and creativity and health. And on the outside of the circle were dollar signs. That's where I want to take this conversation to. Aligning your dollars and your values would actually, for those listening, you're not going to see this, but on YouTube, I'm aligning my hands. It would be taking your dollars and taking your values and making sure they're in alignment, in a straight line. And that's great. And that is a huge step forward from what financial advisors have done for a long time and what a financial plan has looked like for years. But recently I realized we can look at that same concept, but kind of change our perspective a little bit and see it in different light, which I think shifts the way that a plan can really be created. So that's what I want to talk about today. That's what the illustration represents. And before we get into it, another reason that I think this is so important is just, we have these reminders sometimes about how precious life is and how we need to make sure that we're maximizing our time here. And I've had a number of signs we've talked about, and I don't really look at this one as a sign because it's a bigger deal. But yesterday, my mother-in-law had a stroke, and thankfully, right now, 24 hours later, she's better. She is responsive. She's awake. Has feeling on both sides of her body. She's actually spoken by now. But obviously, it was a very scary moment for my wife's family and me and everybody connected. But it also kind of just serves as a reminder that, we never know when that could be us. So imagine going to bed and then getting up the next morning, or going to get up the next morning and finding out you're in a hospital having no idea what's gone on. That's exactly what happened. It was in the morning. The alarms were going off, to get up and get going in the morning. My mother-in-law wasn't responsive. My father-in-law, thankfully, quickly called 911, which probably saved a lot of damage and maybe even saved her life. But she went to bed just like normal, and who knows what her state of mind is today and not knowing what's going on. And she didn't do anything wrong. She had a blood clot that, is so often common, causes strokes. And I was sitting yesterday at the hospital with my in-laws and just reflecting throughout the day and reflecting where I've been on this journey and some of the things we talked about. I couldn't help but think about, like, what if that was me? And if, in a couple years that happened to me and I woke up in a hospital bed and I look back over the next couple of years, and if I didn't do certain things, I would have a lot of regret. And if I stayed doing certain things, I would probably have less regret if I abandoned some of those. So, not to start today off on a downer, but just real life perspective of, we never know when it's going to be our turn to wind up in the hospital or leave this earth. And I really want to encourage you, and personally, I'm working on this as well. And just make sure we're doing everything we can to minimize regret and maximize our time here, and doing that within the constraints of whatever our financial situation may be. So that's where we're going to go with today's conversation of building that RLS wealth, that pursuit circle around our most important things, and focusing on those and building our plan around that, and then allowing the monetary things to kind of take their course. So let's get into that. So again, I mentioned aligning values and dollars is a great framework. It's really about saying what's most important to me and how do I make the numbers work. I want to look at it from a different perspective, move a little bit to the side, and take a different angle at it and say, let's not even talk about aligning our values and dollars. Let's make our values or our wants or our most important things the center of the financial plan. And then we build around it. So rather than an alignment, these the values, the core of what we are, who we are, what we want to be, what we want to do, that's the center, no longer an alignment. And we build the finances around it. So for me, when I think about my circle, you're not getting too deep into the details, but what a lot of it's my family, it is my health, it is now this creative individual who's grown, giving that individual a chance to grow and learn and explore. It is it's those are the main things, and what fits in there is my career. That's part of myself. It is RLS wealth. That'll always be a big thing. It is exploring the pursuit brand. It's having this freedom and flexibility to do those things. That's all a part of what's most important to me. So that's what I want to put at the center, and then everything else fills in around it. And my belief, if we go back to last week talking about 36 and what that number is supposed to signify, of focusing on self, focusing on your health, focusing on your family, focusing on your creativity, and letting material things, money, or the things you want to have, take care of themselves. As I thought about that more preparing for this week, for me personally, and I think this is going to be true for everybody, if I spend the majority of my energy, if I spend the majority of my time focusing on my family, myself, my health, and not myself in a selfish way, but just focusing on the things that make me most happy, focusing on my passions, focusing on living out my purpose, if I focus on those things and not necessarily worry about doing the things that will make other people happy, do things that are good for everybody, but do them because that's what's most important to me, not let somebody else dictate where I go. If I focus on these things, obviously health so I can be at my best, then a byproduct of all this will be I will be at my best to do my best work, whatever that might be. RLS Wealth, On-Ramp, AGC, creating content. When I'm focusing on those things and I have my life in harmony, I will be my best, which will allow me to be the most productive, most successful version of myself that I can be. And by byproduct, the dollars will follow. Meaning, if I'm doing all those things and doing a good job and the passion is there, then the business will grow, whatever business that might be. I'll be more productive. I will make more money if that's what I need to be doing. The other way that could come from this, and this may be my story, this may be your story, I don't know quite yet, is that when I really focus in on those most important things, what's inside of my circle, I may realize the additional dollars that I thought I needed, the additional things that I thought I needed, I don't need. That what I have, or even less than what I have, is actually going to work for this new way of viewing my life. So an example of that would be when I focus on my health and my family and myself and focusing on the businesses that I love and being creative and exploring those, I may realize that I don't need 2 office spaces. I may not need whatever it might be, X, Y, and Z. I may not need this additional income. I may not need to invest the way that I think I need to invest. Whatever it might be, which brings down my income need, which brings down my financial requirements, whether that's making money or saving or whatever it might be. So it can go two ways. I think that this focus will either drive your income and your ability to earn up because you're your best person, you're doing your best thing, and you're where you're supposed to be. You're in your lane, where like my buddy Tyrone talks about at On-Ramp, he wants everybody to be Michael Jordan. So finding that place that you can be the Michael Jordan of wherever you are, whatever it is that you do, and be Michael Jordan. And that's going to lead to being able to make more money if that's what you need to do. Or you realize that what makes you happiest and creates the best life for you and your family is a different lifestyle, is a different life that doesn't require as much money as you once thought you needed, which therefore means you can work less to make less or whatever it might be. I think that's where this focus ends up going. And then when it comes to the planning part, once we know these numbers, now we can go dive into creating a plan to maintain this life that you want to live and where you're going. So I want to encourage you of, if you're not already doing it, get the alignment and your dollars, get the alignment of your values and your dollars set, but then shift it and put the dollars and the financial focus on the outside of what's most important to you and see how that works. It's going to require a little bit of faith. It's different. It's not what comes natural to us. It doesn't feel normal. It feels a little bit crazy to say, hey, I'm going to trust that the money and the material side of things are going to take care of themselves, but just give it a try. And maybe try it on a small scale, maybe just in one area of your life. Just kind of don't shift it all around, but just give it a test run and see if you notice any changes. I'm going to go on a limb and say that you'll see a bigger impact and get more validity for your thought on this is if you go all in. And I know it's scary, and again, it requires faith, and faith and money and finances are a tough thing to do because we want the sure thing when it comes to taking care of our family and ourselves and preparing for the future. But I truly believe that if you're focusing on your passions and your purpose, that is going to guide you where you need to be, and doors will open up that you need to have open up, and the income will take care of itself. Now, I have no scientific data to back this up, but I'll just, again, using myself as an example, all through my career, I've never focused on how much money I want to make. I've always gone out, and an example of this is when I worked at the 403B company. At the 403B company, we had annual goals. They had specific products we wanted to use, certain things they want us to do, and I never bought into that. I always told myself, I'm not worrying about the goals. I'm going to focus on doing what's right for my clients and building a group of people who want to work with me as a financial advisor. And if I do right by them, then the numbers will always take care of themselves. And I promise you, if I need to pull up tax returns, that is exactly what happened. Every year my income went up. I never once cared about the goals. I didn't pay attention to them. I just did what was right, and good things happened. And I don't know why I went that way. It's very easy to get focused on the dollars, but I just thought if I do the right thing, then everything will take care of itself. And after a couple of years and a couple of real life experiences, that was all I needed to buy into it. That's kind of always where I go. I don't set goals for RLS Wealth growth. I don't set goals for income. I don't set goals for anything number wise. My goal is let me go out and take care of my clients, do what I need to do for them, tell everybody about what it is that I do, how I operate, let the right people find me, and then take care of them, and good things will go. And every single year of my business, the assets that I manage have gone up, my income has gone up, my ability to save has gone up, but I've never sat down and said, I need to do X to get to that level of production. And I will never do that. And now with what I've learned about the ability to kind of set the path that I'm on, I know that if I need to go make more money, I have the ability to go do that by just shifting my thoughts and where I need to go. It sounds arrogant and it's not meant to be, but I don't worry about the ability to make money. I know that I can go do it if I have to, but I'm just going to focus on the things that I'm most excited about, that I'm most passionate about, and that align with my purpose, and that the material things will come along. So it's kind of interesting as I reflect on this just now as I'm talking, that message of 36, the circle behind me, the circle on my hat of what that number represents, I already had that in my mindset. That's already kind of who I was in my DNA, and it just got reaffirmed by this symbol. So I do want to get to some planning techniques that will help you along your pursuit that kind of align with this. But I just want to, again, summarize the point of today's ramble, if you will, is to put the focus of your efforts, the focus of your plan on you, your family, your passions, your purpose. What are those, and what does it look like in your life? We talked about visualizing it last week. What does it look like? and what do you need to make that happen? And really go into, I'm going to do everything that I need to be to make this version of me in my life the focus of what I'm building. Again, visualize where you're going and reality will catch up. And then go look at the numbers. What are the numbers today to support, and what do they need to be? And focus on those passions in that middle of your circle, and watch the numbers kind of take care of themselves. And obviously, you have to be responsible in doing this. That's why still working with a financial advisor is still important. There's still planning that needs to go into it. There's still right ways to handle your finances that go into it. But rather than focus on, I need to make X amount of dollars to create this life that I want, what's the life that I want? And then build the numbers around that. And again, it's semantics. It's reframing the way you view it. But I think that reframing gives us a different perspective, which allows us to approach it from a different way. So let's talk about approaching it and how financial planning can kind of come into the play. So I've got my notes again, planning for these conversations, at least from these are the things I want to hit on, but everything else is just open up my mouth and everything comes out. So there's a handful of things that we can do when it comes to financial planning that will support this or give you more flexibility on your pursuit, which I think is very important. The first one is, before I get there, here's a disclaimer. Given that this is a financial podcast, these are not meant to be recommendations. Your plan, your approach is going to be different. It's going to be specialized to what you need. So take these suggestions, take these concepts, take these ideas as education, and then bring them to your financial advisor, your financial planner, or if you do your own planning, bring them to your plan. But these are concepts for you to explore more and then figure out how they fit into your plan. So again, not a recommendation. This is more education. These are topics for you to explore, approaches and strategies for you to consider, not a recommendation. First and foremost, I want to go to placement of your dollars. Where are they in as far as accessibility? We're taught, and we should, at a very early age in our career, to start saving for retirement. Compound interest is our friends, and we have 401ks and IRAs, Roth IRAs that have tax deferral built into them. 401ks and traditional IRAs, it's pre-tax savings. We deduct the taxes today. The investments grow tax deferred, meaning we don't pay any taxes on the trading that might go on, the dividends that are distributed. We pay our taxes in the future when we take it out. So that helps on the compound interest because you're not getting this drag of taxes as your account grows. We're taught to put money in there. Those accounts, though, come with that nice 59 and a half age limit to it, meaning you can't take money out of them without some specific situations that could potentially exist. But there are ways to access it before 59 and a half, but they're few. And if you access it before without those certain situations, you have a 10% penalty plus the taxes. So they've structured these vehicles to give us a benefit, but they want to make sure it's for retirement. So they kind of tie those things up and put that age limit there. Restricting those funds is not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's a good purpose, but depending on your pursuit and what you want to accomplish and where you're going, having all your money tied up in a qualified account may not be good. Now, Roth IRAs, again, 59 and a half penalty free for the interest, and the account itself needs to be open for 5 years. So if you're listening to this and you're later in life, the caveat to getting your Roth IRA funds tax free is 59 and a half, and the Roth IRA has to have been open for 5 years. So just throwing that out there make sure you're aware of that. Roth IRA, you can actually dip into the principal beforehand without penalty, meaning you can take out your contributions tax-free because they've already been taxed. Just don't touch the interest and you avoid the 10% penalty. That's a good thing to know because Roth IRA contributions have low limits that you can make every year, $6,000 if you're under 50, an additional $1,000 if you're 50 and older. We really want to maximize that Roth IRA, and I don't love the idea of taking money out of your Roth IRA if we could have saved somewhere else that would support your pursuit. It's good to know it's there, and truth be told, I took money out of my Roth IRA to start RLS Wealth. So it can be done. It's not a horrible thing, but I wouldn't build into my plan, I'm going to take funds from my Roth IRA for something on my pursuit I know is coming. I get to the point. Having a taxable investment account, a brokerage account, an individual account, a joint with rights of survivorship account, an account that you do get a 1099 every year, you don't get the benefit of tax deferral. We have long-term and short-term capital gains that could be recognized or realized if we do some trading, and there's dividends and distributions that will be taxed. So we lose that tax deferral, but we gain accessibility to it at any age, meaning there's not the 59 and a half. So you set up this account, you put money into it that you're investing, you can access it at any point. I bring this up because if your pursuit requires you to have access to funds pre 59 and a half, maybe you want to start a business, Maybe you want to have a sabbatical. Maybe you want to get into other type of investing, whatever it might be, whatever your pursuit is. If you might need additional funds before 59 and a half, you might want to have a taxable account accessible. Also, from a tax standpoint, income taxes are what you would pay on your traditional IRAs. You pay capital gains taxes if you hold longer than a year on your taxable account, which right now for most of us are lower than our income tax. Not always, but could be. So I would encourage you to consider whether or not a taxable investment account should be a part of your plan to complement the long-term retirement savings that you're doing. I wouldn't necessarily sacrifice the 401ks and Roth IRAs, but I would make sure that if your pursuit requires accessibility to have a taxable account. The final thing I'll say on this is remember your timing and remember your why before you pick the investments inside of this account. Your IRAs and retirement accounts, if you're younger or even if you're a little bit older, those can probably stand to be more aggressive because of the time horizon. 25, 30, 40, 50 years before you're going to use all those funds gives you plenty of time for the markets to bounce around and you should be probably okay. But if you're investing in this taxable account with the intent on needing it in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, really think about how aggressive you want to be with those funds and whether or not they should be invested. And this is where the planning comes in. Emergency fund, maybe additional cash needs, and then this account might come in. So not telling you where to stick this in your plan, but consider it if you need to have access to investments that are not tied up in retirement accounts, and then consider how you should be allocating those funds inside of that to make sure that you're not in a situation where when you need those funds and the market happens to be down, you're not able to get everything that you need. So taxable account. The next thing would be I would throw out there is a second idea is considering how much cash you might need to keep. Now we know right now cash is not earning very much, so it's painful to sit there and earn 0.001% on your cash sitting. But depending on your pursuit, maybe that taxable account isn't right because your time horizon for that next need is too short to really play the market. So maybe cash is king for you and you need to have more cash than a traditional financial advisor would tell you to have. And yes, you're losing to inflation. Yes, you're losing to opportunity of investing somewhere else. But because of the time horizon and your needs, maybe you need a little bit more cash to make sure that your pursuit continues on and doesn't have any hiccups. There's tons of ways you could go look for more yield. There's a lot of opportunity in the crypto space that is alluring, but also there's risks that come with that. So considering, again, how much cash do you need and do you need more, and being okay with maybe having a little bit more cash on hand because of your pursuit qualifying it. The next one I already touched on a little bit, Roth money. You have access to that if you need it, principal only. Again, I look at this as a backup plan. I would not love to see this be my full plan for my pursuit. I would love to know that my Roth money is there for one day when I want to pull things back, and that I'm going to build my savings for my pursuit in other ways. But your pursuit could take you down a path you weren't necessarily planning for, like mine. The reason I took my Roth out is I started my company a little bit sooner than I thought I would, and I had used savings to bridge a gap from moving from one employer to the next. So it was kind of the only option I had at the time. It was there. I knew it was there, and it helped me. And honestly, it was the best investment I could have made with those dollars. So the reminder that the Roth money could be a backup plan, but I don't love to make that the main part of your plan. Personal preference of mine. Okay, so having a financial plan is going to be very important for your pursuit. Once you've moved everything inside the center of the circle, you've got that focus, the financial plan is going to allow you, when you have these changes and these pivots on your pursuit, to check and see what the implications may be. What happens to my long-term plans if I do this? What's the opportunity cost? And I think this is very important because this allows you to make sure that you're making the right decision with all of the information available. You can look at numbers today and you can say, hey, I can afford to quit saving because I want to pursue this. But what does that scaling back on savings do to your plan long term? And let's run a what if scenario of what if you're not able to get back to the level of savings that you think you're going to be? What is that implication? It doesn't mean that prevents you from making that decision. It just means you make that decision knowing all of the what ifs or a number of what ifs so that you can feel that you're making the right decision. So a financial plan is still very important. I'm not saying center everything in the circle and then forget about money and just trust that everything's going to work out. No. I'm saying put everything in the center of the circle, focus on that, and then the finances will kind of work itself out. But you need to know that they are working themselves out. You need to know if your pursuit is working the right way. And then as you make changes, because again, your pursuit's never going to be linear. As you move out further on that record, if we go back to the conversation from last week, are you doing things the right way? What are the implications of that transition to your personal financial plan and for your family. It's important to know that, and a plan is going to allow you to run alternative scenarios just to see what if, so you have all that information. I'm perfectly okay going down a path that may not be the most optimal in a financial plan and on the spreadsheet, as long as myself or the client knows that ahead of time, that hey, this has some risks embedded in it. This is what could happen. Here's the benefits if we do it. As long as you know all of that and you're okay with that, we've talked about it and we've talked about backup plans, then I think you pursue that. It's where you blindly go there and don't know the implications, and I think you can get yourself in trouble. So still run the financial plan to see the trade-offs and the worst case scenarios. Now, this isn't really, the next one's really not about the financial plan, but it's a big part of finances in general. Communication with your partner, whether that's your spouse, whether that is your significant other, business partner, whatever it might be. Communication when it comes to money is, it's a non-negotiable. So making sure as you have these ideas and you have this vision of your pursuit and you're making changes, that your partner is along with that and understanding that, and hopefully in agreement and alignment with it, but at least that conversation's going on. So short and sweet, as you make changes, as you follow your pursuit, make sure you're talking with your partner, that all communication's there, everything's on the table, so everybody knows where we stand and moving forward. So communicate with your partner. Taking risks. Your pursuit's going to require you to take risks. I want you to take risks. Taking risks is what it's all about. Now, not crazy risks, again, and understanding the possible implications of those risks, but taking risks. And if you can take risks early on, and early on is ambiguous. It could be when you're in your 20s. It could be early on in the next phase of your pursuit. The earlier you can take risks, the better, because it gives you time to recover. So I would encourage you as you're younger, there might be the comfort of saying, let me go in and get in something stable and safe and build from there. And maybe that's right for you, but maybe you have this itch to take a risk and do something that is outside the box, but you're afraid to do it. What if you fail? Well, chances are if you fail, you're going to be okay. But take that risk, because if you do fail, you can come back to one of these safe options and rebuild and go from there. You have less at stake. So take the risks early on. We tell you that as investing, you should be more aggressive in your allocation when you're younger, get more conservative later on. I think with your decisions and your chances that you should take a risk earlier on, because if you do have to pivot and it doesn't work out the way you think you want it to, you have less to lose, and you can get back and build. You have plenty of time to rebuild if necessary. But if you take that risk early on, the compound effect of that, if it does work out, could be huge. If I would have started RLS Wealth 10 years ago, the firm would look a lot different. But everything had to take its course, and that wasn't right for my journey, my pursuit at the time. But I really wasn't thinking about it at that time either. So I would encourage you to take calculated risks, understand the risk, take them early on in your pursuit, whenever that pursuit may be. It isn't necessarily age, but take it early on in the pursuit to give you the opportunity for that to compound if it works, and give you the opportunity to recover if it doesn't. And then going back to taking risk early, starting early. And this is something I'm going to talk about from a savings and investing standpoint, to give the example. I would encourage you that as you're on your pursuit, if you can, to start saving and investing at an early age. And we know that financial advisors love to talk about compound interest and how if you save earlier, you can have more on fewer dollars. And that's 100% true. Save earlier, invest earlier so that your retirement picture looks better. But I want to encourage you to save and start earlier for a different reason. If you save and start earlier, then you put yourself in a better position that in a earlier stage of your life, middle of your career, you have options. Optionality to pull back, optionality to save less, optionality to invest less, so you can do different things with your cash flow in the middle of your life. And again, using myself as an example, I turned 40 in February. My boys are 11, soon to be 9, and 4. We're coming into an age where I have 3.5 years before my oldest gets into high school, which is crazy, and they all play sports. I'm an athlete. I grew up playing sports. I know what that means to family travel schedules, and I really want to travel with family. Thankfully, and this is a little bit of luck, we are in a position to not have to save and invest as much in the coming years, which means that I can have the same income, not have to increase my income, redirect my dollars out of saving and investing to be able to have more experiences with the boys now. And I say lucky because even though I got into the profession early on, I really didn't have a lot of guidance on the importance of saving and investing other than what I was learning. My wife was fortunate to have a good job out of college, and we saved and invested a lot in our early ages before we had kids. We also were lucky because we have grown up, with the exception of 2008 and then COVID, we've grown up in a very good market. So we were lucky that we got started early. We were lucky that we did well. And we were lucky that the market cooperated with us to where we're at a point where just normal market returns should be good enough with what we have to get us where we need to be in our goals. Very, very fortunate position to be in, but it was all because we started early and the compound interest works. So now compound interest is going to be my friend. It's going to keep on growing for the future, and it should do all the work I need to be. Now I'll get back to investing and saving like I want, but if I didn't start early, I wouldn't have this ability to pull back on what it is that I'm doing. We wouldn't be able to have these experiences going forward. So I want to encourage you to save and start early, not necessarily just because of retirement, because of the flexibility it gives you in a potential stage of your life where you might not want to work as hard. I've talked about it before that I don't think that the career cycle is going to be an upward grind, stay at the same place for 30 years. I think you're going to have a grind and maybe a plateau, and then it's going to pick back up in our later years. That plateau is the stage of life I'm going into now. I may not want to work as hard. I may not want to work harder to grow my income because of what that means to my family. And thankfully, I'm in a position where I can afford to do that. So if you start earlier, that puts you in that position. And then I tie in the financial plan component of it. We have investments in places that also allow us to do that as well. So I would encourage you to think about all of these things as you plan for your pursuit as options and strategies to work towards your financial plan and planning for your pursuit. All right, we're a little longer, but we covered two things today. We covered the concept and then a little bit of financial planning that could go along with it. Again, not recommendations, ideas and concepts for you to think about. How can you make all of this fit in to your new outlook and your new perspective on your financial plan? All right, so that's it. Hopefully, you're listening to this on Friday and you head on over to YouTube on next Wednesday to watch it on YouTube as well, to catch what maybe you missed the first time around. I want to thank you all for joining. I also want to encourage you all to share your thoughts with me. They can be in the comments. You can tweet them at me. You can email them to me. You can email me at jc@justincastelli.io, and would love to get feedback from what you're thinking about, comments about your pursuit, and maybe we can bring some of these to the show. I also have an idea I think would be kind of cool, and maybe it's not Friday at 9 when I record these, but to maybe do a live version of the pursuit. The software that I use allows me to have an audience. I can come on and do my podcast, and then we can open up to calls. So you can actually call in, turn your camera on, and ask questions, put comments in, and we continue the conversation. So I think that'd be a really cool thing to do, a unique thing to do, and would love to try it out, but only if there's interest out there from all of you. So let me know what you guys think about that as well. I think it'd be a fun exercise and maybe something we do once a month as an additional episode. So again, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining me on my pursuit. I'm excited to be a small part of your pursuit as well, and we'll keep this thing rolling. I already have the conversation ready for next week. We're going to talk about passions and dive more into that, because I don't want to paint the story that just blindly follow passions that don't have any opportunity to present the financial need that you're going to have, and how maybe your passion doesn't necessarily become the focus of your life. Your passion becomes a part of your life and what that could look like. So we're going to have a real conversation about following passion, not painting this picture of just blindly follow and you'll be okay. Because I want to be realistic with this as well and not send anybody down a path that's going to lead to destruction potentially. All right. Have a great weekend. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to leave a comment, a review, 5-star rating, 4-star rating, whatever it might be, whatever you feel is earned to help more people find this podcast. Appreciate your support. Appreciate you tuning in. And remember to keep on your pursuit. We'll see you next week.